It's time for the Lee's Photography Coach's Corner. Live from Lee's Photography in downtown Ottumwa. Here's your host, Jason Van Arkel.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Lee's Photography Coach's Corner on 1240 AM, 102.7 FM KBIZ, as well as a live video stream on AttumwaRadioSports.com. Jason Van Arkel with you tonight, and once again, we'll be sitting down with the coaches from Ottumwa Cardinal and Davis County. Actually, we're going to flip the order. Davis County will come before Cardinal tonight. Both coaches agreed to the swap, so that'll be the order of the show tonight. And as you can see, the Ottumwa coaches and some players are ready to go. Head coach Brian Goodman joining me tonight, as well as tight end and defensive end Trey Swartz, quarterback Adam Denniston, defensive end Colton Carnahan, and free safety Isaac Eaton. We'll get to them in just a moment. But as we always do, we'll start the show with a preview of tomorrow's football Friday night. And it's going to be a chilly one, folks. Forecast calls for the temperatures to take a plunge. So if you're going out to your team's game tomorrow night, be sure to bundle up. Ottumwa's got a tough test on the road at number 9 Waukee tomorrow night. That'll kick off at 7 o'clock, and you'll hear it right here on KBIZ, and you'll see it on the video stream right here at AttumwaRadioSports.com. Davis County is at home tonight. Tomorrow night. They're taking on the Albia Blue Demons. Battle of 1 and 5 teams. Both teams think they've got a shot to win. That'll be a 7 o'clock kick tomorrow night. That video stream will also be on AttumwaRadioSports.com. The Van Buren football team is at home again tomorrow night. They take on Wapello. That'll kick at 7. You'll hear it on 92.7 KTWA. Pekin plays at home tomorrow night against BGM. That kicks off at 7 o'clock on 101.5 KISS FM tomorrow night. And the Centerville football team on the road at Clark as the Big Reds try to get back over 500. That'll kick at 7 on 97.7 Tom FM. Also tomorrow night, Cardinal will try to get back on track at home when they take on Belle Plaine. Eddyville, Blakesburg, Fremont coming off a hard-fought win over Davis County last week. The Rockets are at home to take on Mid-Prairie. Fairfield still looking for win number 1. They go on the road to face Keokuk. Oskaloosa hits the road for a big matchup at Pella. Sigourney Keota trying to get to 7-0. Really shouldn't be tested. They're at home taking on Columbus tomorrow night. And in 8-man football, Moravia is at home to face Seymour, and Twin Cedars has a tough test at home when they take on Gladbrook Rhinebeck. So that is the rundown of tomorrow night's football. Friday night, the full schedule of area schools. We will take a 90-second timeout, and when we return, we'll start breaking down Ottumwa High with their head coach Brian Goodman and selected players as well. Stay tuned. It is the Lee's Photography Coach's Corner, live from Lee's Photography in downtown Ottumwa on the Ottumwa Radio Sports Network.
Are you looking for someone to capture the special moments in life, such as senior photos, weddings, family portraits, baby pictures, or even your furry friends? Look no further than Lee's Photography in Ottumwa to schedule your appointment. Brian, Connie, and the staff at Lee's Photography have the knowledge and experience to capture your special moments and make your vision come to life. Visit them on Facebook to see the range of their work. Lee's Photography on East 2nd Street, across from the Courier in Ottumwa, for all your all-around photography needs. Welcome back to the Lee's Photography Coach's Corner on the Ottumwa Radio Sports Network.
Welcome back to the Lee's Photography Coaches Corner, live from Lee's Photography in downtown Ottumwa on 1240 AM, 102.7 FM KBIZ, and the live video stream at AttumwaRadioSports.com. Jason Van Arkel with you tonight, joined now by Ottumwa High head coach Brian Goodvin, along with tight end and defensive end Trey Swartz, and quarterback Adam Denniston. Last week, Ottumwa, tough game against Johnston, as we would have expected. They were advertised as being very good, and they were very good. 45-7 the final. And Brian, we'll start off with this. Indianola, Johnston, and now Waukee this week. And I think Coach Cancelar last week on the show called it the purple stretch. And both this year and last year, we knew before the season ever began that these would be the toughest 3 games in a row that you'd have all season. Maybe this is just another variation of the old question here, but being in your first season as a head coach, trying to build this program up, how do you keep the kids moving forward, knowing that now third week in a row they're facing a Class 4A team that could be in the top 10, and this week they are in Waukee?
Yeah, well, it definitely seems like Groundhog Day every week when you wake up and you start preparing for, Indianola, followed by Johnston, and then Waukee. What we've, tried to do with the kids is focus on one play at a time. I know I've mentioned that a lot. The kids have to make sure that they keep themselves grounded and know that they're out there to compete, and they need to compete, to their best ability on every play, and not get caught up in the score and what's going on around them, but concentrate, focus on the task at hand.
Do you ever, you sit down and obviously you watch the film of these teams and they watch some of that. Do you ever stop and point out something that these teams are doing and say, you know what, we're building this program right now, but that's where we want to be. This is what we're building to? Oh,
definitely. And I think it starts, with Coach Kern in the strength and conditioning program. When you take a look at just the size of the two teams when you're matched up, I mean, and it's not just us. It's when you whenever you watch, Dowling, Valley, Waukee, any of those teams, Johnston, you watch any of those teams, compete. They've got a lot more kids to choose from, and they've got their strength and conditioning programs in the place that they need to be, and that's where it's going to come from is from the kids' work ethic in those rooms to make themselves bigger, faster, and stronger.
Looking back again to Johnston, the numbers indicated that that might be the best defense your team will face all season, and they certainly were as good as advertised. One thing, though, and I was making note of this in my head as the game went along, and I went back and checked in the postgame show, and sure enough, you guys protected the football. You didn't have a single turnover against one of the best defenses in maybe all of Class 4A. Is that something you guys can build on? Yeah, it's definitely.
We work on our focus and taking care of the football, and taking a look at the things that we did do well. I think, I told the kids this a couple times, really kind of started with Mount Pleasant and then Indianola. We took a couple steps backwards and as far as our program development, not worrying about what's going on around us. And then I think against Johnston, we took a little bit of a step forward. We were in the game. We were focused on the task at hand. We were not sloppy with the football. But like you said, Johnston just flew to the football and didn't give us much of a chance to get things established.
Now you look at Waukee, and numbers-wise, their defense maybe not quite as stout as the Dragons, but most of the points and yards they've given up came against top 10 teams, Dowling, Valley, Southeast Polk. They've only allowed 7 points in the past 2 weeks. East did move the ball against them at times a week ago. Now when you go and you break down the video, how much can you look at what other teams are trying against Waukee, because that's the example this week, and say, hey, maybe there's something there that we can do?
Yep. Well, we definitely take a look at that, what other teams have been doing, but really makes it difficult with the offense that we run. We run a multiple wing T offense, and most of our runs are based out of that. And you watch film on when they're playing Des Moines East, and they're all spread across the field, and Mason City the same way, and we got a little bit of some good information watching them play Dowling, because Dowling does do a few things that we do with an attached tight end and things like that. So we got their alignments, and from our, from previous years seeing film, we know, pretty much where they're going to line up, and we just have a big challenge ahead of us to block them.
All right, now we'll get to the players here in just a moment. One more question for you, and it's about Trey Swartz, who's sitting next to you. Ottumwa fans are dying to see him back in uniform, back out on the field, and your team has obviously missed him in the passing game, and really on both sides of the ball, because he's come in as a defensive reserve and played good defensive end. So give us the update on his status and how close he is to playing.
Well, I think he's getting real close. He's been working tremendously hard. He's getting himself back into football shape. It's really a matter of, what the doctor tells him. We got to go with what the medical professionals feel is the best. And, right now it's still just kind of a wait and see type of a thing. But he's starting to, work on some conditioning and get himself back involved with, our game planning and things like that.
And we'll turn it over now to Trey Swartz, junior tight end and defensive end, and I should note leading scorer from last year's basketball team as well. Neil Hartz would get mad at me if I didn't mention that. But we were talking about this before we came on. I thought you were on your way to an historic night in Newton when you got hurt a few weeks ago, 100 yards receiving in half a quarter. I know you've worked hard to try to get ready to come back. But with that kind of injury you've had, how hard has it been to be patient with the injury, to not try to rush it too much?
Well, just kind of got to listen to the doctor and go what he says and go what the trainer says, and just got to work really slowly back into practicing. Can't really rush it, or that just leads into more injuries and stuff like that. So, yeah, just kind of take it slow.
What's been the most difficult part of rehabbing your injury?
Probably getting back into shape for sure, because probably not been eating the best, probably not been doing the best things to get back into it. But yeah, especially conditioning.
And I know you're not going to play tomorrow night, but you've got a target, I think, for next week. You're hoping to be back on the field against East at home?
Hopefully. Right now we're just kind of playing by ear, see how it feels this week. I've been running, conditioning a little bit before practices, run around the field, so run a couple routes and stuff like that.
Trey Swartz, tight end, defensive end, and again, good to see him here on the show, and hopefully we'll see him on the field next week. I'll have you hand the headset now to the Bulldog quarterback, Adam Denniston, who is in his first year as the starter and had to play some linebacker last year, and he's playing behind Eli McDaniel. Now he's settled in at quarterback. And Adam, we'll start with this. You started the season off hot, and I still had a lot of fun at the Burlington game. I know that's a good memory for everybody, but the competition has gotten tougher as we've gone on. As a quarterback, what lessons have you learned from facing all these top 10, these quality defenses the past few weeks?
I'd say basically just stay simple, try to make my reads, and then just go with that. And if not, either throw the ball away or try to escape and get some yardage.
Coach Goodvin, and he talked about this a little earlier, and he's talked about this off and on all season long. He's talked about not looking at the scoreboard, not worrying about anything other than the next play. How important is that, especially in your role as a quarterback, especially when you're going to play another big-name team like Waukee tomorrow night?
I think it's really big because if you don't focus on the next play, then you could possibly mess that up, and it could lead to more and more. So, yeah, just got to focus on the next play and not worry about what happened in the past.
And then finally, before we go to break, I mentioned that Newton game and the connection you and Trey had was cooking, and then, the injury happened. How excited are you going to be when he's back on the field?
Oh, I'm going to be really excited. I'm going to be glad to have my tight end back.
There you go. Adam Denniston, the quarterback. Trey Swartz, the tight end and defensive end. And along, of course, with head coach Brian Goodvin. Brian's going to stay here. We'll bring in a couple of defensive players, Colton Carnahan and Isaac Eaton, after we take this 90-second timeout. Ottumwa High playing at Waukee tomorrow night. We'll talk more Bulldog football after this. It is the Lee's Photography Coach's Corner on the Ottumwa Radio Sports Network.
Are you looking for someone to capture the special moments in life, such as senior photos, weddings, family portraits, baby pictures, or even your furry friends? Look no further than Lee's Photography in Ottumwa to schedule your appointment. Brian, Connie, and the staff at Lee's Photography have the knowledge and experience to capture your special moments and make your vision come to life. Visit them on Facebook to see the range of their work. Lee's Photography on East 2nd Street, across from the Courier in Ottumwa, for all your all-around photography needs.
As a National Guard or Reserve member, you served your country. Now let VA serve you.
I wouldn't be here today as a successful woman without the help that I received.
Your VA honors your service by providing a wide range of veterans benefits. From home loans to job training, VA benefits can help with some of life's toughest challenges.
What's important about VA benefits is they don't just touch you as an individual. They can touch your parents, maybe your grandparents, your child.
Go to benefits.va.gov/guard reserve to learn more, including how to apply online using eBenefits.
I just finished a master's degree recently, and now I'm working on another degree as well. So the military made that all possible. My veterans benefits made that all possible.
No matter what the time is, apply for your benefits. You earn them. VA is ready to help you.
Achieve your next mission. Learn about and apply for your VA benefits today.
Welcome back to the Lee's Photography Coach's Corner on the Ottumwa Radio Sports Network.
And welcome back to the Lee's Photography Coach's Corner, live from Lee's Photography in downtown Ottumwa on 1240 AM, 102.7 FM KBIZ, and a live video stream at AttumwaRadioSports.com. Jason Van Arkel with you, still talking Ottumwa football with head coach Brian Goodwin, but now joined by a couple of standouts on the defensive side of the ball, defensive end Colton Carnahan on the far side, and in the middle there is free safety Isaac Eaton. Guys, we'll get to you in just a moment. Coach, let's talk a little defense here. Obviously, this is easier said than done against the top-level teams. Last week, though, I hate to bring up bad stats, but Johnston had 8 plays of 20 yards or more, and there was one on every drive of the game, except for the drive where you guys forced them to punt. On the stat sheet this week, Waukee's got 9 different players whose longest touchdown is 30 yards or more, so they live on the big play. What can your kids do defensively to try to limit the number of those explosive plays?
I think they just need to work on flying to the football, and I know Isaac can attest to this. We've been working on, getting low, tackling, and basically understanding our assignments and getting to the football.
Now, we talked earlier about how well the offense did, I should say, not turning it over last week. Defensively, I don't think you guys have actually forced a turnover since the Marshalltown game. Now, Waukee hasn't turned it over since week 3 either. They don't turn the ball over very much at all. Has there been any emphasis with the defense on trying to force turnovers, especially when you consider in a game where you're playing a top 10 team and you're on the road and you're not expected to do well? If you get a couple early turnovers, that could be a big boost in your favor?
Yeah, we definitely like to get the momentum in our favor and, cause a few turnovers. It's not really, we haven't emphasized it any more than we normally do as far as, in practice this week. But, we constantly talked about, ripping the football loose and things like that. And we were real successful at it, the first couple, 2-3 weeks of the season. And then got into a stretch where we haven't, been able to capitalize. The other teams have had the ball on the ground. And I think it comes back to getting people to the football. So we're there to capitalize on that.
Sure. Now, let's kind of break down Waukee a little bit. We've spent probably too much time this year talking about opponents having big offensive lines, but taking a look at the starters they sent me, other than the one guard who's 295, Waukee's O-line really isn't that big compared to some of the other ones you've faced, but obviously a very good offense. When you see them on video, what is it that their offense does well?
Well, Mitch Randall, their quarterback, does a super job of orchestrating that offense. He, is a dual threat quarterback, can run with the football. They got a lot of plays designed for him to take off with it. And, he throws a really nice ball, too. So it's definitely going to be a challenge for our guys to read their keys and get to where they need to be.
How do you slow down a dual-threat quarterback like that? You mentioned Mitch Randall. He's 5th in Class 4A in passing yards and touchdown passes. He's also rushed for 540 yards, and he leads them in rushing touchdowns. So how do you game plan? How do you deal with, I should say, a dual-threat quarterback like that?
Well, as far as I think you have to really stick to your assignments, and when you're playing defensive end, you need to, if you're rushing outside, you need to stay outside, not knife inside, and let him, take advantage of that. And then also on his read options, a lot of reads that he'll be doing. You could, conceivably take those away by doing that. But then they're, like you said, they're They got a lot of people, a lot of weapons that can hurt you. So when you're taking one thing away, you're allowing something else to happen to you. So it's kind of a tricky situation.
Yeah, you talk about the defensive end's job going outside, and I hear it all the time watching football, college, pro football. They talk about setting the edge and contain, and when a guy gets outside, they say they lost contain. Is it just that simple, just making sure you get far enough outside, or what's a technique for a defensive end or a linebacker who's setting that edge to try to make sure they don't lose contain?
Well, it's kind of changed a little bit in the last couple of weeks with Colton being in there at defensive end. He's really undersized for that position, but we put him there on some scout team stuff, and he's caused us all kinds of problems in practice and things like that. But, normally you'd want your defensive end. In our scheme, he doesn't necessarily set an edge. He gets his hands on the offensive tackle and reads from there, and allows our linebackers to do their job. With Colton, it's a little bit different. He's using his quickness, and I noticed today we were running some offense against a scout team, and he was playing scout team defensive end. He said, "You want me to play like a big guy?" And which means he's going to get his butt run out of there. But he's got some skills that can cause problems, and he played real well last Friday night. Using those skills. So.
All right, we'll head down to the players here, and safety Isaac Eaton has the headset on. Isaac, welcome to the show. Good to have you here. For most of the season, you guys have played teams that just ran the ball a lot, the Indianolas, Mount Pleasants, those teams. Last week and this week, though, Johnston and now Waukee, they like to put the ball in the air a lot more. As a safety, how much does that change your role in the defense or maybe change your role in the game plan when you know the other team's going to be airing it out a lot more?
It changes it quite a bit because, most of the time during those other teams that ran a lot, I'd have to fill gaps and, get the run game a lot. But we've been working a lot in practice with the pass games and my coverages and all that stuff. And, hopefully I can just, go out there and deflect some passes.
Get deflections, and I talked with Coach Goodman about turnovers, and I know this is not a pleasant stat, but this team doesn't have an interception this year. Now, again, you played a lot of teams that don't throw the ball much. You haven't had much opportunity. You may have some opportunities tomorrow night. Is that something you're really looking for now, that opportunity to pick off a pass, maybe change the momentum of a game?
Yeah. During practice one of the days, my coach Hopkins said that I should just get interceptions and then stare Goodman in the eyes as I run in the end zone, which, we tried that, yeah.
If you do that, we'll make sure we make a big deal about that on the air tomorrow night. Isaac Eaton, the free safety, I'd love to see him pick off a pass. I'd love to see a few passes picked off tomorrow night. Get some turnovers, change the momentum of the game. I'll have you hand the headset now to Colton Carnahan, who's been sitting there quietly on the end, getting all sorts of praise from his head coach here. And it is a remarkable transition, I think, Colton. You've gone from being a defensive back to a defensive end, and that's not a transition most players would even attempt to make. I want to ask you, what's been the toughest part of making that switch?
At first, when I was at defensive back, I was just guarding, reading the quarterback from a distance, and just making sure that the guy I was guarding didn't catch the ball. Now it's I think it's easier for me because I'm closer to the quarterback. I know what he's going to do, and I can stop him and prevent him from doing that.
And Coach Goodman talked about you being undersized, and I'm just reading straight from the roster he sent me here. 5'8", 155 pounds. You're going up against guys who know their way around the weight room and the lunchroom. And I wanted to ask if you've ever thought about just dropping down and rolling through their legs, but I won't ask that. But seriously, what have you learned about getting through and getting around the big tackle on the outside?
I've just learned to just get their hands off me. They try to grab me, throw me, get on top of me so that I can't make the play. So I got to get low, hit their hip, get around them, and just make sure I tackle that quarterback.
Well, as I was talking about last week with Coach Hopkins, Ottumwa's had kind of a bit of a history of undersized defensive ends that have played well. And my first year was 2012. Logan McCarty, I think it was. He was an undersized defensive end. He flew all the field. He's one of Zach Fonz's favorite players. And Colton Carnahan out kind of carrying on that tradition for Ottumwa High football. So Colton Carnahan, defensive end, free safety Isaac Eaton, and head coach Brian Goodvin. Again, thanks again for coming on the show, guys. Certainly best of luck tomorrow night. I know it's Waukee. I know they're ranked 9th. I know how things have been going. I'm an eternal optimist. Someday somebody's going to shock the world. Might as well be tomorrow night, right?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
All right. We will continue with the Lee's Photography Coaches Corner coming up after our 90-second timeout. We'll switch to Davis County football, talk to their head coach, Kent Anderson. That's coming your way next. It is the Lee's Photography Coaches Corner on the Ottumwa Radio Sports Network.
Are you looking for someone to capture the special moments in life, such as senior photos, weddings, family portraits, baby pictures, or even your furry friends? Look no further than Lee's Photography in Ottumwa to schedule your appointment. Brian, Connie, and the staff at Lee's Photography have the knowledge and experience to capture your special moments and make your vision come to life. Visit them on Facebook to see the range of their work. Lee's Photography on East 2nd Street, across from the Courier in Ottumwa, for all your all-around photography needs. Welcome back to the Lease Photography Coach's Corner on the Ottumwa Radio Sports Network.
And welcome back to the Lee's Photography Coach's Corner here on 1240 AM, 102.7 FM KBIZ, and a live video stream at AttumwaRadioSports.com. Jason Van Arkel with you. We are live from Lee's Photography in downtown Ottumwa. Switching gears to Davis County football now, joined by head coach Kent Anderson. Kent, taking on Albia tomorrow night, but first we'll look back to last week. And let me turn the microphone up here before I forget and you start talking and nobody hears you.
Okay.
14-7 a loss to Davis County, and I knew the score as I was getting back from my game, and then Ellis got back to the studio, and the first comment he made was that Davis County should have won that game. Obviously, that's a frustrating night for everybody, but is that also a teachable moment for your kids to show them, hey, it's tough to win a football game?
It is. It's a great teachable moment. I told them at the end that we're kind of tired of attaboys. We've come closer, played well in a couple games, and we're kind of getting slaps on the back for, hey, you guys, you keep it up, you're doing well, and those are important, but we need to win games, and we're in it to win it. So it was frustrating last week that we lost. We gave up a Hail Mary at the end of the first half, and we moved the ball, did some positive things, but again, our program's at a point where we have to find small victories. It wasn't all, it wasn't like we were totally distraught from our performance. We were just down because we didn't win. We didn't seal the deal, so we moved the ball all over the place, couldn't punch it in. So good learning lessons, and we not all of us came to play. We've had that every week. One section or one position group or whatever is playing well, the other one isn't, and we still haven't put that together yet.
You put Caden Hill at left guard, I think, and Tristan Marks at right guard. And Tristan, had never played a high school football game before. And you had your best rushing output of the season. How did those changes make such a difference for you?
Well, iron sharpens iron, that's for sure. So moving Caden turned some heads in practice. Moving Tristan turned some heads in practice. And Tristan hadn't really, this is his first high school football game, that is correct. And it just sort of picked it up. We see those kids out there fighting. And then, the guy who had been starting before for Tristan was Spencer Bose, who's, he's a sophomore. But it got his attention. And Spencer actually came in the Eddyville game and probably played his best game of the year. Caden is just a fighter. He exemplifies, and I've said this over and over, what you want that's why you coach football.
You give you 22 like Caden Hills, you're going to have a pretty good football team.
Yes, sir, that is correct. So it's inspiring. It is. It's inspiring. It's to see your backup quarterback, or one time your starting quarterback, and a lineman and your kicker going out there playing left guard. It's inspiring. It inspires the coaches, inspires the kids, and so we had some positive things happen there. And Tristan's going to be back again. He's almost 300 pounds. He's going to be something, and Spencer Bose picked up his game because of it.
On the other side, a tough night for the passing game, obviously, and it's not all on your quarterback, Carson Mader. He's 11 to 26, 62 yards and an interception. But what made that part of the night such a struggle?
And that was the puzzling part. That's kind of always been this year what we've done well. We had a chance to go up 14-0, and we threw it. We overthrew it was a 10-yard pass route. There was nobody within 15 yards of Gavin McCall, and we just missed it, by a fingertip. But it should have been just the right touch. We dropped 2 other touchdowns. That were short touchdown passes, open, and dropped them. That part of our team they've been performing, and they did not. We really challenged them this week, and we challenged the whole team. But for whatever reason, maybe it was a new rhythm in our offense because we were running the ball, but just in our skill positions, we just didn't play well. We didn't perform. And I told them if the ball wasn't right there, we weren't making the catch. We have to make the difficult catch, and they weren't, and that was a little frustrating. So they had a good week of practice. They will respond. I'm quite sure. They're good kids. They're competitors. They will respond.
You mentioned Gavin McCall. Now offensively, 80 yards and a touchdown, best rushing game of the year, but also 8.5 tackles and 1.5 tackles for loss on defense. Heck of an effort on both sides of the ball, and what had to be a really physical game.
It was by far our best defensive performance. Eddyville I know they felt they were getting their rhythm when they played Albia and put up 34 against Albia in 2 separate halves, and really had some big plays. But I thought we probably tackled the best we'd tackled all year. Brett Dockstader came in and played a great game, and he'd kind of been off and on a little bit for us defensively and played a great game. And, of course, Gavin was stellar on both sides of the ball. So he's just, like I would say, he's a football player, and he truly is. He's something you can build from. So I was pleased defensively.
And by the way, Caden Hills, he's playing left guard, and then he goes on defense, 9.5 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss, an interception, a fumble recovery. We're running out of superlatives for him. I already just said 22 Caden Hills will be a pretty good football team, but every week he's doing something that is helping the team compete, giving them a chance to win.
Yeah, and an extra point. So
that too, yes.
Can't forget that. He just, you can't say enough, and we do every week, but he certainly deserves it. We still don't have Riley Heller. He's got a fractured clavicle. Maybe we can get him back for the last couple weeks. We missed Dalton Main last week, so we had 2 defensive linemen that were starters that were out. Dalton should be back this week. And, we are optimistic. I felt we've had 3 really good weeks of practice, and I think it's shown, not always on the scoreboard, but if we just slow down and remember we're building a program, we're not trying to build wins and losses right now. We're just building this program, and we are better by far than we were when we began the season.
Certainly. Now, you're back home tomorrow night, homecoming. You're going to face Albia, and we're going to talk about wins and losses a little bit here. Your fans look at their record and think, okay, this is a game Mustangs can win. On the other hand, the Albia fans are looking at Davis County's record, and they're thinking the same thing. I would imagine that especially after the way last week's game went, when I know the kids probably felt like they let one get away, you don't have to remind the kids how important each play is if they want to go out and get that second win tomorrow.
Exactly. That's what we've exactly talked about, Jason. We talked about it is a team effort, and I put the question up tonight before I came here, and we have to define our team tomorrow. I told them to challenge them to go home and figure out what they can do to make this a football team. The question was, are you a complete team? And they have to answer that tomorrow. And I just told them at the end of the night tomorrow, if the answer is yes, we'll probably play pretty well. Might not have won, but if the answer is yes, that we're a football team, and that's what we challenge them. We have to play offense, defense, skill positions, offensive line, running game. We have to do it all, and we haven't put that together yet.
Albia has an outstanding quarterback in Blake Chance. Now, the team is not having as good of a year this year because I don't think the supporting cast around him is nearly as good as it was last year. But he's still throwing for almost 1,600 yards, 17 touchdowns. And last week against the Central Lee team they could compete with, he torched them. I think 380 yards and 7 scores. Now, he's not a runner, not really a dual-threat quarterback. So I guess the first question is, how important is it to get pressure on him tomorrow night?
Very important. He runs. But he scrambles around. He's athletic. You're right. He's not a running quarterback. He's amazing to watch on film. And to kind of go back when I watched him play Eddyville, I thought Albia was just as good as Eddyville, and they lost 35-14, but they gave up a kickoff return and 2 long passes in that second half. It was just big plays. Otherwise, it was back and forth. But he's got kind of an unorthodox throwing motion. But he gets rid of it quick. He can throw it in small windows. I mean, I admire him. I'm sitting there. I told our guys tonight, I said, look at him. He's going to put it there, fellas. And we have to, how do you contain him? I don't think you do. But you just try to slow him down a little bit.
And then Albia, I cannot think of another team I have seen in Iowa this year that has such an imbalance between the run and the pass. They've thrown 228 passes. They've got 89 rushes, and a few of those are sacks, so they've dropped back to throw it even more. On the surface, I would think that having them be one-dimensional wouldn't be that bad for you, but at the same time, your secondary is going to have to be disciplined start to finish because it seems like they're always looking for the big throw. They got a lot of big plays, and like you said, Chance is going to put that ball on the money.
He is. The amazing thing is when they do run it, they actually gain yards. And so we can't take that for granted, and that's what you want to. You want to sit there and talk about all their route combinations and talk about Chance and throwing the ball, but you can't ignore it because they just kind of tease you with it. They know it's when you run it, you got to have to respect that, and we will, and we do. So we have to do a great job in the secondary this week and maybe change some looks and show one thing and do another, but without trying to get too tricky because then we kind of fool ourselves. Our guys run around don't know what they're doing because we're trying to get tricky. So we have to keep it simple but try to change it up a little bit.
You talked a little bit about a couple guys on the defensive line who were out. You get one back, Riley Heller, still out. Are there any other injuries of note, anything you're dealing with? Because now we're into week 7. There's only 3 weeks left.
Yeah, that's Riley. Riley's the injury that we're really concerned about. That's a big need. Otherwise, we're healthy. But you miss 6'5", 220.
Oh, yeah.
Who's a pass rusher. So we have to engineer some ways to put pressure on the quarterback this week. And maybe, sometimes your best defense is a good offense, and maybe just, try to have a balanced game, a balanced attack, and try to keep the ball out of his hands. Weather will be a factor, I'm sure, tomorrow as well.
I was going to ask you that. That was the next. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna backtrack a moment here because you talk about trying to have balance and trying to keep their offense off the field. Your team had been primarily moving the ball through the air, but last week you found that run game. Maybe that was a good time to find that run game going into this week's game. If you can run the ball, run the clock, then Chance doesn't throw the ball as much against you.
Mm-hmm. That's certainly one of the ways you'd hope to keep the ball out of his hands. I mean, that's the best way. Keep the ball out of his hands. If he doesn't have it, he's not throwing the ball. So, they're gonna pack the box. They've seemed like they've packed the box against everybody, and they kind of play man. So it's very important that it's almost you have to get the run going. You might have to throw a little bit and get their secondary spread out so we can run the ball, or it might be vice versa. So I've seen them do a little bit of both, and we're prepared for both. We certainly talked about it, and we've had 3 good weeks of practice. I'm really pleased with where we are. Maybe not so much our record, but I knew that going in. And this team's growing, and we'll play tomorrow night. We'll play hard. I think we're there where we want to be in terms of just getting better.
And then I'll go back to where I was going to go before. You mentioned the weather. We've talked about hot weather games. We've talked about rain games and storms and delays and all of that. Now we're going to get into a game where the temps lower 40s, upper 30s maybe. First really cold weather game you're going to play this year. And again, you got a bunch of young players who haven't really experienced this before. What can you tell them about having to deal with the conditions, especially since, I would imagine even today in practice, the conditions are nothing like what they're probably going to be like tomorrow night.
Correct. We were able to have a walkthrough outside and kind of had some shorts and T-shirts. It's going to be a high of 44 tomorrow. I told them not to overdo it. Sometimes just changing clothes at halftime, just changing your undershirt, putting on a warm undershirt, stuff like that. If we go, I told them don't go out there with 4 sweatshirts on, and you're going to be running around like the stuffed bratwurst out there. Everything's going to be puffing out. We don't need that because you will get your adrenaline going and just be active on the sidelines and play hard and fluid up. We have homecoming, and there's a lot of activities. And last year, I thought at homecoming against Albia, our kids had a great week of fun. And I said we have the responsibility here. People are coming to watch you play. So you have to be responsible with how you prepare tonight and how you prepared this week. And I think we have the right mentality going in terms of we're trying to win a football game. And homecoming is homecoming, but our responsibility is to win a game.
You kind of got to my question. I was going to ask you there how you deal with homecoming and all. Obviously, it's a lot of fun, but there are also distractions there. But like you said, you think your kids have handled that pretty well.
I think they have. Last year we kind of let them go. My first year here, kind of feeling out, and I think in retrospect I probably shouldn't have done that. We kind of let them go, but we're trying to build a culture of fun and competitiveness and let them enjoy their experience. However, I think last year's seniors would have enjoyed their experience a lot more had they prepared differently going in terms of what they did during the week, because I thought we were exhausted on game night. I think we're fresh. I think we're there. I think our mindset is right. That doesn't mean we're going to win, but I'd be surprised if we don't play well.
And then final question, I've asked you this before, but it kind of is worth asking every week. Win or lose, what would you like to see out of your kids tomorrow night?
A complete team effort, and I think I said that last week, but we still haven't put that complete team effort, and I'm not trying to just give you a standard answer, but that's really what we're searching, and that's exactly what I told them. How do we become a team? How do we do that? I always use the analogy, I can throw a Frisbee or a football, and a Labrador will go grab it in the air, but that doesn't make him a football player. And so we have to just, we have to understand that there are other things. There's the mental part. There's the support when you're on the bench. There's that back slap of your teammate. There's doing what you're asked. And even though it doesn't make sense that you have to run an out route when there's a guy right there covering you, but we'll understand there might be someone else behind you doing something different. We have to do that. It's culture, not X's and O's. Understanding that culture and being a part of that culture is the most important thing. Everybody's got a playbook, but not everybody has the right culture.
Davis County head coach Kent Anderson here on the Elise Photography Coach's Corner. Again, Davis County homecoming tomorrow night versus Albia, 7 o'clock kick. Ellis Kojo will have the call, the live video stream on AtomoRadioSports.com. Kent, again, thanks for the time. Albia is another one of our area schools, so I can't say I hope you win, but 2 1-5 teams that we'd all like to see both you guys play well, have a good, spirited game tomorrow night, and I know hopefully you'll be sitting here next week talking about a victory and your kids playing a complete game, a 4-quarter game.
I'm looking for that too. Thank you.
All right, we will take another timeout. When we return, we'll talk Cardinal football with their head coach, Landon Miller. That comes your way next on the Ottumwa Radio Sports Network.
Are you looking for someone to capture the special moments in life, such as senior photos, weddings, family portraits, baby pictures, or even your furry friends? Look no further than Lee's Photography in Ottumwa to schedule your appointment. Brian, Connie, and the staff at Lee's Photography have the knowledge and experience to capture your special moments and make your vision come to life. Visit them on Facebook to see the range of their work. Lee's Photography on East 2nd Street, across from the Courier in Ottumwa, for all your all-around photography needs.
As a National Guard or Reserve member, you served your country. Now let VA serve you.
I wouldn't be here today as a successful woman without the help that I received.
Your VA honors your service by providing a wide range of veterans benefits. From home loans to job training, VA benefits can help with some of life's toughest challenges.
What's important about VA benefits is they don't just touch you as an individual. They can touch your parents, maybe your grandparents, your child.
Go to benefits.va.gov/Guard Reserve to learn more, including how to apply online using e-benefits.
I just finished a master's degree recently, and now I'm working on another degree as well. So the military made that all possible. My veterans benefits made that all possible.
No matter what the time is, apply for your benefits. You earn them. VA is ready to help you.
Achieve your next mission. Learn about and apply for your VA benefits today.
Welcome back to the Lee's Photography Coach's Corner on the Ottumwa Radio Sports Network.
And welcome back to the Lee's Photography Coach's Corner on 1240 AM, 102.7 FM KBIZ with a live video stream on OttumwaRadioSports.com. Jason Van Arkel with you live from Lee's Photography in downtown Ottumwa. And in our final segment tonight, we'll talk Cardinal football with their head coach, Landon Miller. Cardinal 4-2 coming off a hard-fought loss to Durant 33-21. Coach, tough sledding when you get behind early, 19-0, I think it was. And on one hand, your kids obviously didn't quit. They made a game of it. But on the other hand, that's an awfully big hole to dig out of. So how did you assess the game overall?
Yeah, I think the first thing is we don't settle for losses, and that's why I told the kids tonight too. Starting off practice is we'll get to some of the proud things I am, but the number one thing I want them to hear is no longer do we settle for losses. And moral victories are great, and I think Coach Anderson talks about that too. But we want wins, But at the end of the day, the one thing I keep thinking about is, what are checkpoints along the journey? What are postmarks that we can say we're getting better? And when you, number one, down 19-0 and you don't quit and you win the second half against a good quality opponent, there's something to be said for that. I think at the same time, losing by 12 to a team like that, when in the past you've been 40, 50 pointed, by a team, I think that also shows a mark in the program or where we're trying to build this thing. So I'm proud of the kids for fighting and not quitting, because I think from what I hear, that's sometimes a hallmark of the past at Cardinal is you get down, you quit. You get down, you quit. Well, these kids didn't stop fighting, and I was proud of that. But at the same time, we're not happy with an L. So.
All right. Tough couple of games now passing-wise for Maddox Jones, been held under 100 yards 2 weeks in a row. And obviously the quality of the defenses he's faced has something to do with that. Mm-hmm. Where can he make adjustments and get better, and where can his blockers and receivers do the same? Because it's not all about Maddox either.
Yeah, I think, this is a great stretch of learning for a sophomore quarterback. When you get defenses that respect Griff, especially, and other receivers like we've seen, he has to be able to read the defense, find other targets, and make plays. And so when he doesn't have his security blanket because they're taking him away, we try to get him the ball in other ways. He has to learn, and going into the rest of these games and into next year, he has to realize I've got to become a more complete quarterback, which isn't easy, which is why it's one of the hardest positions to play, is you've got to really understand, what the defense is doing holistically, and take what they give you.
Now, Maddox did rush for 84 yards in the game. That was the bulk of your rushing attack. Is that something he's consciously working on, maybe something you've encouraged him to do to maybe keep defenses more honest?
Yeah, I think for us, schematically, we're getting better as a coaching staff too, realizing what's the defense doing and what can we do to counter that, And so, especially against Durant, they basically said, we're not going to let you throw and then run if you want to. And so towards that third quarter, our offense started to get in a little bit of a rhythm on the ground. The offensive line continued to play hard. And we got Maddox the ball, which is a nice surprise. He's a tough kid. He's not, maybe the athlete right now as Trey was the last 2 years. He's getting there. He's working hard. But he's definitely really, really tough. So we want to continue. If the defenses are going to give us that, we want to continue to use him in that way.
You talk about the rushing game, and obviously you've been missing Gabe Reyes. He's been out, and we've known that. We haven't really talked about it. And I asked you before we went on, but we'll say it here for the benefit of the audience. Any chance he'll be back, maybe not this week, but maybe next week or the final week of the season?
Yeah, best case scenario that he would be back to play for us against Highland next week. Worst case scenario, maybe not the rest of the year. I know what the doctors have said is that he can be cleared to do some activities. I think the biggest thing is I want to keep the kid safe, and I know he wants to play really bad, but he's going to start jogging a little bit and testing out the leg, and hopefully he's ready to go by next week. But that would be best case scenario.
All right, you face Belle Plaine this week. Mm-hmm. They run it. A year ago against you, they only attempted 4 passes the entire game. Yeah. So obviously they know what they do and they do it well. What makes that offense hard to slow down? Because there's a lot of teams that run it all the time, but they all do it different ways. What makes Belle Plaine difficult to stop?
Well, first of all, they are very talented in the backfield. They're big. Their skill guys, just like Durant, are big kids. And that's something in our program we're working on. We had a lot of sophomores at the skill positions and a junior, but we've got to become bigger kids. And so we've talked a lot about that. They've got that. They've got 180 plus kids in their skill positions, and so they're tough to bring down, and they play really physical. They're well coached. That coach has been there for a long time, and they play physical. Their line is very athletic, and I think the biggest thing is they do a lot of different things. It might look like in the stat sheet that they run, and so sometimes you get the perception that they're very simple, and that's not the case. They do a lot of window dressings. They make you really prepare for a lot of different things in the run game, and you got to be ready to play a very physical game when you play them.
I'm going to take you out of the immediate moment here, and you talk about your kids and all the sophomores and trying to get bigger. And I know you focus on one game at a time. Do you ever stop and look at all those sophomores out there and think, well, what are these guys going to look like after 2 more years in the weight room and they're seniors?
Yeah, I hope so. I think, we talk a lot about as an athlete, when you are, and this is the trick, right? And we're trying to do this as a school too. When you're an athlete and you go to practice and, you work out during the day in the weight room, you're burning a lot of calories. And so you've got to ingest about 3,500 to 4,000 calories a day to be able to do that. Well, I don't know if you've ever tried it, but it's very difficult to do, especially when you're a kid. And schools are not geared towards athletes as far as their nutrition.
Oh, no.
They're 800-calorie meals a day, and that's a good thing on one hand, but when you're an athlete, that's really hard. And so some kids, maybe they don't eat breakfast. We've talked a lot about that, and then they don't get done with practice until X time, go home, and who knows if they're getting a great meal. So we've really talked in our program about how can you get 4,000 calories a day, and that's the trick. And we're 57% free and reduced lunch, so that poses a challenge because what kind of meals are they getting at home? So we're trying to educate our kids on that.
All right, let's go back to talking about Belle Plaine. Defensively, they've been a bit up and down this season, but they've slowed down both Durant and BGM in the past 2 weeks. As you look at them, had a chance to look at them on video, I keep wanting to say film, but it hasn't been filmed for a long time. But where do you think your offense might have opportunities to move the ball and maybe take advantage of some of the stuff that Belle Plaine does defensively?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they come out and play us. Teams have done it a lot of different ways. They're very talented in the box with their D-line and their linebackers. Trevin Strait is a very talented kid, and he's going to be one of those linebackers that's going to give us some problems. Our line has been working all week on trying to make sure that we block them up soundly so that we can give some opportunities in the ground game. And I think for us, the way that we play offense, it becomes, what are you trying to accomplish for them defensively? Are you trying to stop, our spread attack with the receivers? We're not going to have any rain tomorrow night. It is going to be a little chilly. Or are you going to try to stop the run game? And if you do try to stop the pass game, can we up front be physical enough, to run the football? So I think it's a lot more about us as coaches and the kids executing than it is about what they're going to try to do.
You talk about the weather, and it's going to take a turn for the colder, high of maybe 44 tomorrow and maybe low 40s, upper 30s by game time. I asked Coach Kent Anderson this about his Davis County team too, and you're in a similar spot. You got a lot of sophomores out there who maybe aren't really used to this and couldn't even get used to it this week because the weather's been okay this week. It's just going to turn tomorrow. Do you think that can have a major effect on a game like this for both teams because they haven't really experienced this, or is it maybe not that big of a deal?
Yeah, I think, anytime something's new in a football game for kids, it becomes a factor. I think for us offensively, it comes down to, can we throw and catch the ball in that type of weather? I'd like to think we can. The nice thing is we've got a lot of kids who have played a lot of games. As far as, a senior-led line who's played, most of them for 3 years for us. A lot of those sophomores played as freshmen, and they played in some type of weather last year too. So I would like to think that they can play in those environments. At the same time, you're right, it hasn't been like that all week. So we'll kind of see how it looks tomorrow for us.
I want to go back to the big picture thinking here, and you addressed this somewhat when you said losses aren't acceptable, L's are not acceptable. Your team has been a lot better in the last 2 games than they were a year ago against those teams, but not enough to grab a win. Yeah. What lessons can your kids learn, or maybe hopefully have already learned, about what it takes in these kinds of games against these kinds of opponents?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is I've taken away that what we're doing is working. What we're doing in this program. I tell people this, and it's not an excuse, but I think a couple years ago when I got to Cardinal, they just weren't set up for building athletes. If a group came through, okay, but we have to build athletes for sustainability. Our kids are doing a great job of working out every single day in the weight room and getting better. We have to continue to do that. But I think what I see when we play, teams like we do is we're still not there. We're still not big enough, strong enough, fast enough, and that's going to come. It just takes time. And like I said, we have to build ourselves as athletes, and we have to make sure that our athletes are conscious of what they're putting in their bodies and how hard they're working out.
I may be asking this question out of order a little bit here, but we talked all through the non-district schedule about getting ready for those district games and being better prepared than you were a year ago. And certainly you guys have been, but 2 losses have come your way. How have the kids responded? I guess I'm asking you how practice has gone this week, basically, because how have the kids responded to this adversity? How have they come back for practice this week, and how have they been preparing? Because I know they've got to be feeling some frustration because they're looking at it the way we do. They're like, we were better, but we haven't gotten there yet. So what's been their attitude this week?
It's been really good, and you just never know how a team's going to respond year to year. This year it could have easily gone, well, here we go again, with the district play, or, we've worked so hard and we've got what we got, and then this is it. But these kids are still really hungry. I think with kids, it's always at this time of year, we've been going for 2 months, like I told them, and so we do try to scale it back a little bit, work more mental than physical. Try to keep them healthy too. But, I think they've been really upbeat. I think they're still enjoying practice and they're doing a good job. And so that's encouraging. It really is. And, we were 19 in the RPI that just came out. And so honestly, everything's in front of us. We're not out of anything yet with the wild card stuff. So I try to let them know, there's still things to play for.
Cardinal head coach Landon Miller, his team looking to get back on track and find a way to knock off Belle Plaine at home tomorrow night. Kickoff will be at 7 o'clock down in Eldon. And Landon, again, thanks for coming up. Thanks for the time. Always been, you guys play in our county here in Wapello County, always been Cardinal supporters, even more so now since you guys are really looks like you're turning the corner, finding success. Really hoping you guys, I say this every week probably, but really hoping you guys get a big district win tonight. I cannot imagine what that would do for your players and for everybody's momentum. So hopefully you guys go out, find a way to get it done tomorrow night. We can come here next week, talk about a big district win.
Well, I appreciate it and appreciate everything you guys do. This is a great forum, and I know our kids are really excited to see it every week, so thank you.
All right, and that'll do it for this week's Lee's Photography Coaches Corner. We're out of time. Talk to you next week on the Ottumwa Radio Sports Network.